So that's when it's really safe to start adding things that could be suffocation issues. So I tell my parents, you know, hey, put them to bed on their backs, even when they can roll over. When they roll over on their own, that's when you put your baby into God's hands and you say, take care of my baby, but you still put your baby down on the back. That teaches the baby, you want her to sleep on her back. You want her to be safe. My mother, God love her, raised 7 kids 50 years ago, would look at me and say, your babies would sleep if you put them on their bellies. And I would go, yeah, maybe they would, Mom, but I wouldn't. So, we don't put blankets in beds anymore. We don't wrap babies up in blankets anymore. If they need to be warm, we put them in a warm sleeper. And you'll see that a lot of those rules are not followed. But to me, the biggest thing you can do to benefit your patients is get them to sleep on their back. Okay, at the bottom of my forms, I put what we're doing that day. If they're a newborn, they might be getting a bilirubin check. If they didn't get a hepatitis B check, shot in the hospital, they'll be getting one there. And then when they come back to reweigh them. We use the same form at a month. At a month, no we don't. We have a different one for a month. Okay. I wrote these over the years. I've changed them as things have changed, like sleeping guidelines, like formulas, like car seats, and try to keep them updated. And then give them, I used to give a lot of information, like I might give a whole brochure on this and a whole brochure of that, and then I thought, this is getting a little much, I don't think parents are going to read all that. So I took the highlights and put it on one sheet that goes home with them, that gives them the real main points that I want them to remember, because they're not going to remember everything I tell them. So they can take something written down at home. A lot of them read it while they're waiting for me to come in the room. Then if they have questions, they can go over the questions with me. And they might even say, yeah, I saw on your handout that I can feed this now. Okay, so a 1-month-old, aren't they cute? They're already developing personality. Okay, what's different about the 1-month-old? We still have our newborn reflexes that we talked about. A lot of times we see moms preparing to go back to work, so we might have a transition from breastfeeding to bottle feeding or supplementing. We want to talk about daycare. We want to talk about sleep habits, so we can develop good sleep habits. If mom's going back to work, she's going to need sleep. So we focus on a few different things that way. I always make sure that my newborn screening results is in there so that I can reassure parents that everything is well. That is what people traditionally call the PKU test. In Oklahoma, we screen for a lot more than PKU now, and we'll probably continue to increase the number of things, but we don't begin to screen for things that other states screen for. There's still a lot of other things out there that can be screened for, but it's a balance between what it costs to run all those tests and what the benefits are. So, balance everywhere in life. So, the real difference in your 1-month-old is they should be feeding and well and growing at this point. You should see some changes in their development. They should be awake longer. They should be interested in the environment while they're awake. Making eye contact, looking and listening, maybe even starting to smile. One thing to note, see how nasal hygiene is written on there under anticipatory guidance. You're probably thinking, what the heck is that doing on there? 1-month-old babies are the stuffiest little things you've ever seen. And you gotta know this because it's universal. And they have a high nasal blood flow, so they make a lot of mucus, and they have a really narrow little nasal passageway. So you take this skinny little nose and you put a lot of mucus in it, and they snort, and they sound stuffy, and they sound miserable, and parents are sure they have allergies already. And so it's real important to address that, especially if you hear it. Talk about suctioning the baby, sleeping with a cool mishumidifier, and reassuring them that sneezing is good. It's the way the baby blows their nose. That this is going to get better on its own, and your baby probably doesn't have allergies. So these are the things I kind of just go through that I want them to remember when they leave me at a month. Oh. This is an add-on for a month. Apparently somebody somewhere thought that just in case moms don't keep their 6-week OB visit, or maybe they don't think obstetricians care enough to do a postpartum depression screening on the moms, but they tax the pediatricians to do it. Because let's face it, if a mom is depressed, then the baby is going to suffer. And so I asked my parents to take a second. It's 10 questions. It doesn't take very long. Most of the time, when parents have a high score, they know it, and they might tell me, yes, I suffer from depression already, which I may or may not have known. I'm on medicine, or I realize I'm not doing good and I've made an appointment. But sometimes they don't, and sometimes that sheet opens a can of worms, and I'm in there for 30 more minutes, but you've done something really beneficial if you picked up that a mom is experiencing postpartum depression and has not realized that herself. And things may be as bad as she feels like they are, but chances are she just needs some support. Maybe dad doesn't understand, maybe dad's nervous about helping take care of the baby. Maybe she's exclusively breastfeeding and dad can't help with feedings, and she's frustrated by that. So there's lots of things that might come up, but you can do somebody a huge favor by just directing them to someone to help them if they're having problems with this. And I've actually said to moms, hey, your postpartum depression scale looks great. And the mom goes, yeah, I'm doing a lot better after this pregnancy, remembering how awful she did after her last baby. So if they're really abnormal and I'm really worried about them, then I probably have spent a lot of time with them at that visit, and I might even ask them to repeat it at 2 months to make sure they're doing better and that they've gotten some help. Oh, that's the key to scoring. I was like, why did I put that on the advice? Because some answers are a positive format and the scale goes 0 to 3, and some answers are a negative format and the scale goes from 3 to 0. So you can tell just by reading the question, but there's a quick key for your nurses to score it. And now we're talking about our 2-month-olds. And did I not put a picture of 2-month-olds, really? They're so cute. All right, I guess not. Oh, there they are. Oh, they are so cute, aren't they? They're smiling. Okay, so smiling is the big one. And now instead of grunting at mom, they're cooing. And let me tell you, a mom will get up much happier in the morning or the middle of the night for a feed when a baby coos and smiles than if they grunt and cry. So I tell the baby, see, Mama will get up for you when you smile at her. And moms laugh because they realize that, yes, it does feel better to get up when my baby smiles at me. Developmental things they do that are different. Now when they lay on their belly, they should be able to lift their head up and look around. They might push up with their arms a little bit like this, but not all the way up. They might just sort of like, but not doing push-ups yet. Some babies are starting to try to roll over at this age, so sometimes we see some of that. They might roll at least halfway, but they should be able to track halfway. They should be making happy sounds. A baby who doesn't smile and doesn't coo, you really want to keep an eye on that kid, because that's the baby who you're really worrying about the very first signs of autism on. Reinforced use of your car seat. At 2 months, I sort of suggest to the parents we start feeding between 4 and 6 months, so that they're not going home and starting to feed at 2 or 3 months. Tell them that all the baby needs at this age is still formula. Go over the volumes. A 2-month-old is going to drink about 5 to 6 ounces every 3 to 4 hours. But by 4 months, they may be up to 8 ounces, and that's okay. So that way they're like, oh, I can give more when I need to. I've had some parents who are so extremely concrete, and until you say that baby can have an 8-ounce bottle, that baby ain't getting the 8 ounces. So you'll learn your parents that way, but by kind of going through that at every visit in terms of what to expect between now and the next one, you'll take care of a lot of their concerns. At 2 months, we're gonna give more shots, so I always say, have you had any trouble with the shots you've had so far? Okay, so far they've had 2 Hep Bs. They better not, that's our safest, most effective vaccine. But that also gives them a chance to bring out any concerns they have about vaccines, talk about the shots they're gonna get now. I always talk about how today's shots are so much better, less side effects, combined vaccines so the babies get less needles. What are you gonna get? What are you gonna expect? What are we gonna expect? Maybe some local soreness at the shot site, maybe a baby fussier than normal who maybe wants to be held a little bit more, maybe a baby who sleeps more that day because they went through a lot more. But we're not expecting neurologic side effects and we're not expecting high fevers like in the old days. Our vaccines are much better. Around the house, we always try to reinforce safety things like make sure your carbon monoxide and smoke detectors are checked every year, batteries replaced, hot water heaters, they can actually be set to a maximum temperature so that you can prevent accidental scaldings. And then it seems silly to talk about falls for a 2-month-old, but some 2-month-olds will be able to flip. And some babies who are crying get up enough motor that they can flip. So you never leave a baby in a high surface unattended. If your baby's on the changing table, that changing table's maybe this wide, that you can fall off of. So I tell my parents, if you have to walk away from the baby during a clothing or a diaper change, lay her on the floor. Or in the middle, very center of a king-size bed. But once they can barrel roll, that doesn't work either. Because you will not believe the guilt a parent will have from a fall off of a bed or any surface, whether the child's injured or not. Okay, 2-month-olds. As far as sleep goes, I often get, when will my baby sleep through the night? On average, parents can expect their child to start sleeping through the night maybe about 4 months of age. Some babies will at this age, but it's not very common. And babies are not old enough yet to learn to cry themselves to sleep. So if you have a parent say, should I let my baby cry to sleep? Not at this age, they won't learn. You can start putting a baby down, awake, and sleepy at this age if they go to sleep well on their own. But if you have a kid who doesn't, who screams bloody murder, then you need to keep rocking them to sleep. But by 4 months, you should be able to put them down awake but sleepy and let them learn to fall asleep on their own and expect that they can learn then to sleep through the night. But every child's different, so if you have one who sleeps through the night at 4 months, you're blessed. Okay, 4-month-olds do some great new things. They have these wonderful baby pictures because they can assume that prone position. That is so darling. Did we miss something there? There we go. So again, parental concerns, wow, this can open up a whole new conversation. Some days you don't have time for, you still have to ask them if they have anything they're worried about, because that's how you pick up things. This is the age I might pick up congenital torticollis, a baby who only won't turn their head to one side. You may not even notice that when they're young. But by 4 months, parents are now realizing that no matter what way I lay them in bed, they always look out. They always look to the same side. If I put them in the other way, they don't look out. They don't turn their head position. So asking them if they have any concerns is your best screen for any developmental or other abnormalities. Again, nutrition, and I ask point blank at this age, are you feeding the baby solids? And if they're not, then we talk about how to feed a baby solids. We'll talk about that in a second. And if they are, then I just make sure that what they're doing is appropriate. So as far as feeding baby solids, anytime between 4 and 6 months is a fine age to start. You don't have to start this young. You can wait till the baby's older. I have a lot of breastfed babies who are not interested in baby food, sometimes to even 8 months of age or older. And I have a handful of kids who won't eat baby food at all. They won't eat anything until you give them table food when they're older. So there's a wide variation of normal like there is with anything. But we start feeding with rice cereal because it's the least allergenic. Rice cereal is the least allergenic of everything. The other options are oatmeal and barley, and then mixed vegetables. So we start with rice cereal. If any of you have ever eaten baby food cereals, they are very blah. I encourage my parents to mix them with formula, express breast milk, or apple juice, not water, so they don't taste like wallpaper paste. And that if the baby doesn't like it, then that they mix in like a fruit. So maybe add some applesauce to the cereal, because they don't really taste very good. But babies don't know that, because what have they had so far? Nothing that tastes good. They've never had ice cream. What do they know? So, they learn spoon feed. Babies have a strong tongue detrusor reflex. That means they push out. Almost anybody who's watched a baby feed sees the food come right back out onto the spoon while mom's holding it there. So they have to learn to accept the food in their mouth and not spit it back out. So that's the first skill they're working on. So I tell them, start with a tablespoon. And if they don't get it down, don't worry about it. But if you've tried for a couple of feedings and the baby has no interest or isn't getting anywhere, stop. The baby's just not ready yet. Wait a couple weeks and try again. No harm. After cereals, you can add fruits and vegetables. There is no special order, and there are no studies that say feeding your baby vegetables before fruit prevents a sweet tooth, is any healthier, encourages the child to eat vegetables when they're older. No, none of that is true. There used to be a very strict feeding order when I was a intern. Oh, thank God they got rid of it, because I could not remember what came first. It was either orange or yellow. What's a yellow vegetable anyway? Aren't they all orange? So yeah, that was awful for me. So I tell the parents just one new food every 3 to 4 days so you can watch each food. Any food you've already given, you can continue, so you don't have to just do 2 feeds. You can do rice cereal, then rice cereal and applesauce, then rice cereal, peas and applesauce, then rice cereal, peas, applesauce, and carrots. Not that you would give all of that at every meal, but so they don't feel like they can only give one food item at a time. Babies only need to eat 1 or 2 times a day initially at 4 to 6 months. At 6 months, most of them are going to be ready to eat 3 times a day. A 4-month-old, when they're feeding well, will probably eat one little 2.5-ounce jar. By 6 months, they'll probably eat 2 of those 2-ounce jars. And then you're going to go to 3 times a day. You're going to go to stage 2 baby foods at 6 months, which are 4-ounce jars. And they can have anywhere from 1 to 2 of those jars up to 3 times a day, just depending upon the baby's size, how much they want to eat, how much they drink. I encourage the babies after 6 months to eat more and drink less. Cut formula down to about 20 to 24 ounces a day instead of 30 to 36, and feed more foods. And finger foods, people think of puffs now. Yogurt melts things that dissolve in the baby's mouth, usually about 9 months. Seems to me I gave my kids butter biscuits at 6 months, but I think things have actually gone backwards in that way. I think we fed kids more finger foods when they were younger in the past, and it seems like we wait longer now, but I tell parents the goal should be table foods by a year. So between 10 months and a year, they can start transitioning from baby foods to table foods, more foods that they can feed themselves. But I have a lot of parents say, well, why can't I just feed them table food? And I go, okay, choking, that's a biggie. So the foods have to be tender enough and soft enough that the child doesn't choke on them. They tend not to really chew them, but even if they have teeth, they just mash with their tongues and mouth. They don't really bite and chew with their little teeth. But the biggest thing is, y'all need to look at salt content on foods. Babies' kidneys cannot handle the salt load that you see in a lot of different, foods. And especially if they're given canned foods. So I tell parents who want to make their own baby foods, we have to take fresh fruits and vegetables, you want to steam them, you want to put them through a food processor or blender or whatever your preferred item is, but you really don't want to use canned foods to make any of your baby foods because they have so much added salt. And that in general, as you're going towards table foods, the same rules apply. Give that kid fresh fruits and vegetables. Yeah, canned vegetables are perfect size perfect texture, but perfectly high in salt. So do frozen peas and carrots. When you cook them up, they'll be just as soft as the cans. Maybe they're a wee bit more work, maybe you're used to it and it's okay, but they're a lot less sodium in the diet. Also, okay, that was all eating. As far as drinking, I said cut back on the formula, but also by about 9 months, you want to encourage your parents to start trying a sippy cup, because that kid can't get off a bottle if they can't drink from the sippy cup. And you really want to encourage them to get off the bottle as close to being a year as possible, so that they're not walking around the house carrying a bottle. It's really hard to potty train a kid who carries a bottle and drinks from a bottle all day long, and there's nothing worse than a 2-year-old with Pepsi in a bowl. It's really gross. Yeah. Okay. Car seat use, walkers and jumpers, playpen. I find that nobody uses playpens anymore. They really are a nice, safe environment, especially if you have animals at home, but I find very few people use them. The real concern with walkers is stairs. In Oklahoma, we don't have basements, and it doesn't seem like we have a lot of 2-story homes, so that's not as much as where I grew up in Ohio, where everybody had 2-story homes and everybody had basements, so there were always stairs for the baby to take down in the walker. So I tell my parents that, yes, your baby can be in a walker or jumper, as long as you're remembering that that's not the only place the baby is. It's just one place you go for a short period of time, and that you're interacting with the child while they're in there, and that you're not using the walker as a babysitter, and they don't move around in the house where they can pull things down on themselves. At 4 months, they get a second round of the big shots. I guess we should talk about shots at some time. Do we have a shot schedule in here anywhere?
They've got one on YouTube.
Okay, well, we'll do that last then, unless it comes up. And again, your physical's pretty much the same at all these ages. And, wow, I wonder if I was making this at Christmas.
I thought you just had a June baby.
I don't know, maybe. It was 6 months old at Christmas. Okay. So, if the baby's not feeding baby foods at this age and is still growing very well, I don't push baby foods, but I do encourage them to think about it unless they're breastfeeding. If a mom's breastfeeding, the baby's still thriving and growing, and mom is quite happy with exclusive breastfeeding, I tell her that starting solids is entirely a decision for her and the baby to make. But if I see a slowdown in the baby's growth, which this is where I often see it, if they're not eating solid foods yet and they're exclusively breastfeeding, they may start to have a slowdown now, where they're just not getting enough calories. A formula-fed baby who's not eating anything is probably drinking like 48 ounces. And remember what I told you it costs to formula feed a baby? So those are the moms who are going to dump $2,000 on their formula costs. So I really encourage them to say, hey, let's cut back on that expensive formula. Let's start doing some solids. And a lot of times by this time, the baby's sitting up in the high chair, the baby's watching the family eat, siblings, parents, and they see that food going in their mouth, and the baby wants that food. If you've never seen this, you ought to watch a 6-month-old watch people eat. It's really quite fascinating. They may put their hand out and try to grab the food right off the parent's fork. I mean, they want food. So when I have a parent who's not feeding, I go, doesn't your baby try to steal? Oh yes, right off the fork the baby tries to steal my food. Well, then maybe we should feed the baby. Baby's interested in food. Okay, because we are now starting to get ready to crawl, this is a good age to talk about childproofing the home, which really, you know, the baby who maybe rolls around isn't going to get into much trouble. But even if a 6-month-old isn't crawling yet, they can barrel roll and get anywhere they want to go. So their world has expanded greatly and parents' fear has gone up exponentially. The best way to childproof a house is to get down on your hands and knees and look at what your child sees. Look underneath your chairs and your couches for all the coins that you've dropped down there over the years that your child's gonna put in their mouth. Look at where your outlets are. They have outlet covers now that can go right over the outlets for something that you have plugged in all the time. They can screw in, now the child can't plug and unplug and put into their mouth and then plug that wet outlet back in. They can't stick a key into that outlet because it's covered. If it's not an outlet they're using, putting the dummy plugs in will help prevent sticking things into there. Poisons, phew, that's a huge discussion on its own, but I tell my parents, basically, don't put anything in your bottom cabinet. Maybe Dawn dishwashing soap. But everything else, put up above in your high cabinets. When my kids were this age, I took all the cleaning products out of the bathroom, out of the kitchen, and put them all above the washer. And then after that, I started putting them in little bins. If I was cleaning the bathroom, I'd pick up the bathroom bin, and the stuff would go with me, and then it would go back. And that way, there's never anything that the baby could get into. They have latches that you can put inside to hold the doors closed. They have outside door hooks. There's all kinds of things. My mother used to tie shoelaces around the cabinets underneath the kitchen sink. That's always a pain to untie though. Much easier to flip a little thing, but there's all sorts of things out there. That's something I often buy for baby shower gifts, being a pediatrician. I also give a lot of first aid kit type stuff geared towards newborns. Having the parents take a few minutes to look at their house, even if that's all they think about. Your hot water tank, set it to 120. Get all your cleaning products and potential poisons out of the way. Think about what medicines you keep in your purse, bedside stand, low cabinets, grandma's purse, grandma's house, so you don't have an accidental ingestion that way. And the last thing that a lot of people don't think of is coffee tables with pointy ends and fireplaces. I bought some really ugly area rubs and just put them over my fireplace for about 5 years until my kids were no longer going to hit their heads on the brickwork there. And I can tell you they hit their heads on those carpets a lot, and it saved me a lot of grief. So a few simple things that can get them start thinking about their house that way. I had to laugh after raising 7 kids. My mom was like, I am not moving knickknacks and things like that. The grandchildren have to learn to adjust. Yeah, one of my nieces had to get an endoscopy in the ER for eating compound W at my parents' house, so. That's why you still do it when you're grandma. Okay, what else on there? Discourage sleeping with the bottle, is that what that says? Okay. Again, I try to touch on sleep at every age so that we can offer suggestions on solving sleep problems, but one thing that you have to think about when you get to 6 months old is your kids are starting to get ready to have teeth if they don't already, and if they take a bottle of formula to bed with them, they're gonna have milk bottle caries when they're 3. And there's nothing more frustrating than dumping $2,000–3,000 on the cost of general anesthesia for your child's baby teeth that will fall out 2 to 3 years later. So, if you can get your parents to, at this age, the last bottle of the night is followed by brushing the teeth, and everything after that is water. You will save them a lot of heartache down the road, and the babies won't learn to wake up hungry at night to have a bottle. You know, I can wake you at 2 in the morning and feed you a bowl of cereal, and after 3 or 4 nights, you're gonna wake up hungry at 2 in the morning. Same thing happens with a baby in a bottle. So you put them to bed with milk, they wake up at 4 in the morning and they drink warm, soured milk. Oh, doesn't that sound nice? Good for their teeth too. So we want to just start off with, okay, we don't take a bottle to bed. If we do, it is only water in it. And actually, to get them to sleep well, you don't want to take the pacifier to bed either, because when they can't find their pacifier, they're going to cry and wake you up to find it for them. So you want them to learn to go to sleep without anything but their own ability. If they have teeth, I start talking to them about cleaning the teeth. Recently, the American Dental Association has changed their recommendation so you actually can use fluoridated toothpaste And kids, now you just vary the amount you get, so for an infant under 1, it is just a smear. So that's about what you think, it's barely any toothpaste on there. And I usually just follow it with a little sip of water from a cup, which the kid thinks is great anyway, they want to drink from a cup. And then after that, it's only water to drink after that. I go through my parents' dental hygiene with them at every age after this. Are you brushing? How do you brush for a kid who refuses to brush? This is a battle you want to win. You hear people say, pick your battles with your kids. If you don't get your kid brushing their teeth by the time they're 12 to 15 months, you're never going to get them to take a toothbrush too. So this is a battle you need to win while they're little. If you have a kid who refuses to let them brush their teeth, you have 2 parents do it. They face each other knee to knee. One parent has the child looking at them, they lay the child down in the other parent's lap. That parent controls the child's head and hands, and that parent who's looking down at the child from this position is gonna brush the teeth. And you may think that's cruel, but it doesn't take very many nights like that, and the child learns that it's not scary, it doesn't hurt. Hey, I like toothpaste. And now we brush without any problems. So a simple intervention that's just done in matter of fact, not in a, get down here, we'll make you do this type of attitude. I see that too. And you just start off that way and the children just go with it, and it's not a big deal. And I encourage kids from the beginning to brush twice a day. And when they're getting older and I say, do you brush your teeth in the morning? No, just at night. I go, really? You go to school with stinky morning breath? Do you want your friends to say, you know, that Johnny's really nice, but he has stinky morning breath? I go, no, you don't want them to say that. So you need to brush your teeth in the morning. And Mom's like, see, I told you. So, and then the dentist says, thank you, Dr. Johnson, for telling the kids to brush their teeth twice a day. Okay, get shots again at 6 months, and since it's that time of the year, we start giving flu shots at 6 months too. Flu shots are given to babies 6 months and above. The first year the baby gets a flu shot, they get a split dose. That means they get 0.25 mLs, half their dose, the other half again in a month. That's only the first year. After that, kids under 3 get a half dose, 0.25 mLs, but they don't get a second dose. So the first year of life, they get 2 doses of a half a dose, 0.25. The second year of life, they get 0.25 mLs, just a single time. And if they're 3rd season round, they're still young enough that they're under 3, they still get 0.25. And kids don't get a full flu dose until they are 3, and there are differences in flu vaccines. Some of them are not allowed to be given to the child is 4. So if you ever work in a pediatrician's office or in a multi-age clinic like family practice office, you have to make sure that you're giving the right flu vaccine to your children. So then you just buy the vaccines that can be given to the babies and the older kids, and that's the only vaccine you keep in the office. Much easier. All right, all the stuff for a 6-month-old. Nine-month-olds are really fun, because now look at everything they can do. They can crawl, they can sit up by themselves, they can stand and move around in a walker. Oh, by the way, the other one I was supposed to show, not only can they sit up by themselves, but they can hold a ball and feed themselves. A 9-month-old should be able to hold their own ball. Okay, so that brings us to, there you go. Pull to stand means they're standing next to a sofa, and they're on their knees, or they're crawling around, or they're even sitting, and they can grab hold and pull themselves up to a standing position. The first time you may see this is a baby in the crib, standing on the side rail, holding on. Mom comes to get them up in the morning. What is the next word after that? Pulls to stand, something, and then creeps. Cruises, good. So much for that LASIK surgery, huh? Cruises means we walk holding on to a piece of furniture. And a 9-month-old might even walk along the couch and then stretch over to the coffee table and walk along. But they probably won't take those interval steps on their own yet. They'll need to hold on to something to transition. Creeps is what you think of as crawling. Crawling is an army crawl. Okay, that's just technical terms, I still write baby crawls in the chart. But that's what creep actually means, up on all fours moving. They should hold their own bottle. They should start finger foods, and the reason they don't do finger foods well before this time is they might be able to pick it up like this, but it's really hard to feed yourself when you're holding food like this. So until they can do this, they can't do this. So 9-month-old can usually do at least a 3-finger grasp where they can get a puff or a yogurt belt in there and then put it into their mouth. But if they pick up a handful of Cheerios like this, they don't know how to put all those into their mouth. So that's kind of why you just don't really see it until they get a little bit older. At this age, they should be able to say mama and dada, and some of them will be getting specific where they mean only that parent, and some of them will still be non-specific. So I actually circle, will they say mama or will they say dada, and I circle if they're specific. And if I don't circle, that means it's non-specific. Response to what? This is awful. Thank you. Like I said before, under speech development, at this age, you should be able to say their name and they should look at you and they should at least acknowledge the word no. They may not stop what they're doing yet, but they should pause or look at you, something to realize that you've said a word that they maybe don't want to hear. Because they usually don't like it when you say no. They realize it's something they're not supposed to do. Because we can crawl and creep, we're now an explorer. So they're going to get around, they're going to get into anything they can get into. If you have a basket of toys, they're going to pull toys out of the basket. If you have kitchen cabinets that are safe, leave them open. Let them open the kitchen cabinet and play with your Tupperware or the pots and pans. Those are fun toys to a baby. Christmas boxes are awesome. I used to take the boxes and then open them up and make tunnels the kids could crawl through. And then we'd have some pillows and maybe some pillows on top of boxes so we could crawl up, and we'd make entire jungle gym mazes, etc. out of Christmas boxes. Nobody played with the gifts at that age anyway, so the boxes were more fun. But this is why kids get into trouble, because they are exploring. They do put everything into their mouths. To them, the mouth is just another sense. They don't understand yet that the objects that go into our mouth are things that we eat. So they'll put anything into their mouth, and it's just another way to them explore, just another sense. But it really frustrates parents. Peekaboo is a really fun game at this age, and the reason that they can play peekaboo, does anyone know? They have a skill at 9 months that allows them to play peekaboo. It's called object permanence. It means if I drop a toy over the edge of the table, the baby's going to look for it. Because they realize now, even though they don't see it, it still exists. Before that time, a baby thinks, oh, it's gone. Gone, gone, gone. Mom leaves the room and they cry because mom's gone. They don't know mom's coming back. Now they know mom's coming back. Now they throw a toy on the floor so that you'll pick it up because they think it's funny. And they can play peekaboo because they know you're behind those hands. Blanket, whatever. But it does make it a lot of fun, and it's a good way for parents to interact with the kids. Again, I always talk about car seat use, feeding the baby, what finger foods are appropriate, I'll tell you that in a second, how they're sleeping at this age, how we can get them to sleep through the night if they're not, and then keeping the house childproof. Okay, so finger foods, a lot of parents like to start with the things that dissolve in their mouths, but once you're past that, what is good, what is safe? I like the biter biscuits. If you've all seen them, they look like dog bones. They're about this big, that wide, kind of thin. And they mostly gnaw on them, and they get all soft, and they can kind of eat the outside of them. But they don't tend to bite a big piece off. You give a child who's just learning, and you give them a saltine cracker, you're going to have a mess, because they crack the whole thing. So a saltine cracker is not really a great finger food, because it just disintegrates all over them. They can hold a biter biscuit, they can gnaw on it, they get the hand-mouth coordination, the idea of feeding themselves down. And they make great dog bones when they're done with them. If they're a really good finger food eater, and parents want to feed them food, like real table food at this age, I will say, okay, for breakfast, maybe not 9 months, but maybe 10, 11 months, scramble them eggs, cut up pancakes, slice and quarter banana. For lunch, small pieces of lunch meat, and I'm into 1 centimeter, that's my idea of small. Sliced cheese, torn little. If you're gonna cube cheese, I go even smaller than 1 centimeter. But I tell parents, small enough, soft enough. If you're cooking chicken and it's really tender, flake it into pieces for the baby or cut it really small. But if it's tough and overcooked, don't ask the baby to try to get it down. Fruits should tend to be more ripe. Vegetables need to be steamed well, because if they're still too hard, then the baby's not gonna get them down. No foods are anything the baby can choke on, like steak that they have a hard time chewing, raw vegetables, salads, peanuts and popcorn, and honey. That's botulism spores, if you wonder why babies don't get honey, not till a year. Peanut butter, you all, if any of you have any nut allergy history in your families, you may be up on the new peanut butter recommendations, but peanut butter used to be on the list of foods that we don't give kids till they're 1 or older, and for a while it was 2 or older. Well, now it's, guess what, give your baby peanut butter starting at 4 to 6 months. I'm still not real clear on how we're doing that. I read all these things. Put peanut oil in baby food. That seems to be the most current recommendation. So if you do have a family with a lot of food allergies and they express concerns, their recommendations are actually to introduce those food allergens at a younger age, giving the child more of a chance to eat the foods before their allergy system is in high gear, where they have these allergic reactions and they develop their own tolerance. Nice, huh? But you know, you can't give peanut butter yet, because that's one of the foods that kids tend to gag on because it's so thick. So they are recommending peanut oil, just a few drops mixed into baby foods. Like, that doesn't even sound good. So, baby proofing. 9-month-olds, if they haven't had their 3rd Hep B, they'll get it at this age. And we used to do lead screening at 9 months. You can do it at 9 months or a year now. The recommendations kind of vary, but we used to do lead screening by those 2 questions. Is there lead in your environment, and do you have a job that involves lead? Well, then Flint, Michigan happened, and if any of you know that story, it was a pediatrician who realized that something had happened different to the water in Flint, Michigan, and there's a lot of lead in it. She was starting to see a lot of kids with lead poisoning. And the difference was that Flint, Michigan had quit buying their water from another lake and started using their own lake water, which was heavily leaded with lead. I mean, I don't want to say it had a lot of lead in it. And that was a financial decision, and that the city actually made. And I don't think when they made that decision, they knew that lead was an issue. It wasn't like they said, well, we'll just take this chance and expose our kids to lead, but it was actually determined that the source of lead in the babies was the water. And so after that, they went away from this question screening to universal screening. But fortunately, we have these nice little machines now that a simple drop of blood will do the screening in about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5, in your office while they're waiting. So, trying to think if there's anything else exciting in the 9-month-old. A 1-year-old, now we're talking about real personality. If they're not walking, they're probably walking holding hands, or cruising holding on, or they may be walking behind something. If parents say no, they're not walking, there's certain questions to ask. Will they hold your hand? Do they need 1 or 2 hands to walk? Will they walk behind a push toy? It's a good way to ask that. A lot of kids will have the little shopping carts, or even a baby stroller that just gives them enough balance that they can walk behind it. So they're starting to be a lot more fun. I encourage my parents to get their kids really using a sippy cup. Let's push it, let's put milk in that sippy cup and out of the bottle, put only water in the bottle so that they really want to drink the cup to get their milk, and we want to try to get rid of the bottle. Largely for the milk bottle carries, largely because I don't want them to have any dental issues, but just because I just don't like the look of a 2-year-old with a bottle. It's just nasty to me. Vocab-wise, these kids are gonna say 1 to 3 other words. Often there'll be other people's names. Like I said, they learn names really easy. Super common words are things like dog, ball. They might try to say something like cup, drink, juice, milk to indicate their wants, because they realize you can use words to say what you want. Again, walking alone or with handheld. They should be able to clap. They should be waving. And they can feed themselves easily small food now because they can do a pinch or grab. So that helps a lot. In fact, most 1-year-olds, 12-month-olds will become fiercely independent about feeding themselves. They will get mad if they are told that they have to let their mom or dad feed them. And I've actually had a case of failure to thrive in an infant who at about 8 or 9 months wanted to feed himself, and mom did not understand that. And so she was fighting to spoon feed the baby, and the baby was refusing to eat. And the mother was extremely frustrated. I was in the Air Force at the time, Dad was overseas. So you can see there's nothing good about this situation. So I put the baby in the hospital and I said, I'm coming up to watch him eat breakfast. And it became very apparent that mom was force feeding the baby. And I said, okay, I'm ordering lunch and I'm coming back at lunch to watch the baby eat. So the baby ate the entire lunch because it was all finger foods and the baby could feed himself. And mother, I made her sit across the room. She wasn't real happy about that, but when she saw her baby eat all the food, she got it. So we stayed in the hospital a couple of days, gave mom a break, let the baby gain some weight, so we proved we were right, and everybody went home happy, and Dad came back a couple months later to a happy household. Okay, so after a year, there's no reason for baby food unless you have a child who is very gaggy or is maybe developmentally behind. So if I have a parent who's still feeding baby food, I ask why. If there really is an issue, then I talk about let's make the right food choices. And let's get the child so they're eating with the family, so they feel like part of the family. Also, they can come off formula and go on to whole milk. They should have whole milk because the difference between whole milk, which is 4% fat, and 2%, 1% or skim milk is that the added fats in whole milk is good for the baby's brain growth. Okay, so we're talking about something that's going to help IQ down the road. We're not talking about body growth. We're not looking at the growth curve here. We want all babies, regardless of fatness or skinniness, to drink whole milk from 1 to 2. At age 2, I tell the parents it's their choice, but that if their child is still very skinny, I would go ahead and continue the whole milk. My kids drank whole milk till they were 4 because they were so skinny. But if the parents drink 1% or 2% and they don't want to buy 2 different milks, the child can drink those too. Again, I reinforce dental care because you've got to get them doing it while they're young. Car seat facing the back, poison control. Poison Control Center makes little stickers with their phone number on. I try to get parents to think differently nowadays. We used to say stick this on your phone, now I say put this phone number in your cell phone. Because that's what we're going to do when we panic, we're going to pick up our cell phone. Whole milk, a lot of parents will ask me how much do they need to drink, and if you think about it, this is about what a baby's drinking in formula right now, 16 to 24 ounces. So they don't need to drink any more, but some babies do. Getting 16 ounces is sometimes hard. But if you have a kid who's drinking much more than 24, you probably have a different situation. You probably have a kid who's drinking that much milk to fill up because they're not eating. So why are they not eating? Do they have a feeding problem? Do they want to feed themselves and their parents won't let them? And what's the situation? And parents often say to me, well, why does it matter? Why can my child not just drink milk and not worry about eating? Okay, here's the best illustration I can give you. An 18-month-old comes to my office looking very sick, fever and a cough. Turns out he has pneumonia, he's pretty hypoxic. In fact, he's as white as a ghost. So I put him in the hospital to take care of his pneumonia, and his hemoglobin is 6. And the only reason was that he didn't eat any food, and he drank only milk. And why did I not know this? Because he was Korean, and mom and dad said yes very politely to everything I said, whether they understood me or not, because they were very polite. But because they did not understand that I was trying to get them to have their baby eat appropriately, they just kept feeding him milk. And when they got a translator in the hospital, that's how they figured out the child had an iron deficiency anemia that severe, because when you drink that much whole milk, you have microhemorrhages in the intestine, and you leak red blood cells. So you not only end up anemic, iron deficiency affects your brain growth, which can affect your IQ. So the child actually got transfused in the hospital in addition to being on breathing treatments, IV fluids, and IV antibiotics for the pneumonia. And so that's just a lesson in, you think you know what you're doing and you think your parents are on board, but you never really know. But that's why we don't do just whole milk, because of that. And that wasn't a child allergic to milk. That was a child who had no lactose intolerance, no milk allergy, and that happened because they were over drinking milk. At a year, I also do this PEDS response form. I also do it again at 3. It's just another questionnaire that lets you know if the parents have concerns. This one brings up, do you have any concerns about how your child's dressing himself, how he's developing socially, how his language skills are developing. So they're not so pinpoint, and it gives parents a little bit more of a chance to think about, do I have any issues in there or not? So I kind of like how it's worded. I see that I'm talking way too slow, which I really didn't think I was. So we're going to have to pick up the pace or y'all are going to be late for your dinner dates. 15-month-olds are fun. However, from a parent's point of view, this may not be fun. Every meal may be followed by a bath, because you've got to let your kid feed themselves. They may not use a spoon or fork yet. I encourage parents to try utensils between 15 and 18 months, and if they don't do them, to not worry about them. Let them feed themselves with their fingers. If kids don't like sippy cups, I encourage straw cups. But it is the rare child who can drink from a cup without a lid this young. Parents will say, well, they can. Yeah, they can if you hold it, but that's not letting your child be independent. And that's what our goal is here. We're fostering independence, so the child has to be able to feed themselves, which means we need to have a cup that doesn't spill all over the kitchen and the child. So a sippy cup or a straw cup, so that the child can take care of themselves. And you gotta admit it, that's as cute as can be, even if it is a huge mess. 15-month-olds should walk well. They may run, they should walk backwards. They can use a cup, they can point and gesture to let you know what they want. They're gonna say a few more words, but not put the words together. They can crawl up a step, even though they can't walk up a step yet. They can bend down and pick something up while they're walking. They can play ball with you. I'm not talking about bouncing or throwing a ball. I'm talking about like rolling a ball with you. If you sit on the floor and they sit on the floor and you spread your legs apart so the ball stays in the middle, so you don't lose your ball, that's a good way to play with them. Again, I reinforce, if they're not off the bottle, why we want to work on that. Again, talking about dental hygiene and no milk bottle carries, healthy diet, and make sure they're offering all the food groups. I tell parents point blank, I don't care if you don't like vegetables, you must feed them to your child. Because the reason a child doesn't eat vegetables is they're not served them, or they see their parents make faces at them, and I promise you, they're not going to eat them if their parents makes a face at them or makes a bad comment about them. So I tell dads, You don't like vegetables, keep your mouth shut. I tell moms, you serve those vegetables, whether you like them or not, because that's why kids get finicky diets. Usually, 12 to 15-month-olds eat well. 15-month-olds to 18-month-olds to 2 years, most kids are gonna go through something called a toddler appetite slump. That's what's written up there. You may think I made that term up. I did not. That is actually a term in the literature. And you have a kid who eats everything and anything. And now you have a kid who eats 2 bites and is done, who maybe eats 1 good meal a day, and who is gonna eat that 1 good meal a day at daycare with their friends. So the parents think they don't eat anything. That is very normal. They've slowed down a lot in their growth, so they're not growing as fast and their bodies are slowing down to keep up with it so they don't get fat. So I tell parents, this is normal, this is okay. When your child doesn't eat good for you at home, just check with daycare that they're eating 1 or 2 good meals there. And don't think it's that the daycare food tastes better than yours. It's the eating with your friends, it's eating in the fun seats, it's eating with the kid-sized plates. It's everything that's different about their life being geared towards being a kid there that's different from your life at home. And refrain from snacks at this age if they're not eating good meals. We all are taught to feed kids 3 meals and 2 snacks, but if they're not eating their meals, they shouldn't fill up on snacks because what's a snack? Okay, maybe peanut butter crackers, but it's probably not chicken, peas and carrots and pears. So save that hunger for the meal so that you can get them to eat better then. And try not to fill them up on snacks. Don't let them fill up on a bottle between feedings. Give them water in their sippy cup to drink. Don't give them milk to fill up on. And encourage eating while you're sitting down at the table, not grazing, where you take a few bites of food and go around and play. 18 months. Now we play. Isn't this great? They can build blocks, they can play with toys. They're a lot of fun. They feed themselves, they use utensils, they've got a lot more words so they can let you know what they want. They understand the things you're telling them to do. They can walk upstairs now. Some of them will be combining words together, especially those smart little girls, sorry. That's just a thing, girls do tend to speak earlier than boys. It really has nothing to do with the end result. I just like to tell parents that. Some kids are going to start taking off their clothes, especially shoes, socks, and diapers. Some 18-month-olds will be ready to potty train. Anymore, it seems like kids are ready to potty train at about 3.5. But I start asking at 2, at 18 months, again at 2, again at 2.5. Signs of being ready to potty train, they're not happy to be wet or dry. If they don't care, they're not going to potty train. They have to have enough vocabulary to let you know that they want to go. They have to be able to pull down their pants on their own so that when they are trained, they can go on their own. So there's some basic skills there that they have to have that if they don't have, they're not going to be ready to potty train. Moms have to have enough time and energy to potty train. If you're about to have your second baby in a month, you're huge, you're tired, you do not want to sit on the bathroom floor while your child potty trains. Wait till after the baby comes. Wait till the baby's a little more independent. Choose a good time. There's a lot to be thought of when you're getting ready to potty train. Again, dental hygiene, encourage teeth brushing. I say this is the time the kids brush their teeth and then you brush after because they don't brush good at all. But again, we're fostering independence, so we want them to brush first. Your turn, my turn is how we do it. You can give choices. You can choose a pink or blue toothpaste. No more than 2 choices, please. You can choose a Scooby-Doo or Cars toothbrush. No more than 2 choices. And that way they're participating, but their choice is not to brush or not. Snacks should not be chips, should not be cookies, should not be candy. Fruits, vegetables, cheese, yogurt, off the bottle. Daycare, if they don't go to daycare, you want to start having that mom think about having their child interact with other kids the age, especially by the time they're 2, so they can learn to share. By the way, 18-month-olds bite, suck their thumb, use a pacifier, steal other kids' toys. All of that is normal, and there's nothing you can do to stop it from happening. It's normal, it doesn't mean you have a bad kid, and daycares need to get over it. This is MCHAT, it stands for Modified Childhood Autism Screen. Test, I believe, for the T, not screen. But it is a quick 20-some questions that most of the answers to it are yes, and there are only 4